Hey there, this is Alex with Arch Public, and today I'm going to walk you through the setup of the intelligence algorithm, how to think about it and manipulate it, and then ultimately how to layer it with your other instances. So let's jump right in. I'm going to assume you have gone through the Bitcoin setup guide first on our support site. That'll get your Gemini accounts connected to our Arch Public client portal. And then by this point, you should be able to add your indicators to TradingView. So let's first make sure that we are on the right currency pair. For this example, we're going to type in BTC USD, make sure it's on Gemini, select that pair, and then make sure we're on a daily chart to start with while we go through this example here. Once those are all done, go over to indicators and go to your invite only section and click the intelligence algorithm. As you can see now, we have it loaded in here, and our strategy tester will populate once the strategy is loaded in. You can see now we have a bunch of blue arrows. Those are all of our buy orders here. Before we jump in, let's load up the second recipe on our support site. What I'm going to do is go into the settings for the intelligence algorithm, go over to inputs, select weekly here, and let's bring this to 2019. And let's change this to 10,000 bars. And we're going to exit full position on last historical bar. And we're going to turn on low buys. And let's take this to a 0.7. Then we'll go over to properties and we will drop initial capital down to 100,000 and take order size up to 1,000. And we're going to press OK. After we've loaded our recipe in, I'm going to go over some of the intelligence algorithm settings here. So go up to the top, click the gear icon here, and we'll start with the inputs page. I'm going to move this over so you can see my chart and see how things change. We're actually going to start at the bottom of the inputs page and focus on this activate intelligence section. So this is the algorithm. When I turn low buy off, you'll notice that the chart will essentially turn into a dollar cost average system. So it is going to buy blindly. It's not going to take any inputs from an algorithm, and it won't be optimizing buy points. And what this algorithm is built for is helping you buy only when price is at its best. So I'm going to turn this back on. And you'll see we actually just filter out a bunch of trades that happen on these legs up and down, which is what we want. So I'm going to leave that alone for a second. Actually, skip to the top again. And you're going to notice there is a repeat purchase method section. Right now with the recipes, we have it set to weekly. If I change this to daily, you'll notice I get a lot more buy orders. It basically increases the frequency at which the algorithm will buy. So what happens in these areas, if I zoom in a bit, and so you can see now there's large swaths of the chart that are purely all buy orders, and it turns off and then it activates again, turns off, activates again. You can tell that there are certain areas that the algorithm detects a good price to buy, essentially. All the sub algorithms are greenlit. There's a bunch of check marks, essentially. And as long as that occurs, the algorithm will execute based on the frequencies that you select. So if we go back to settings here, I have it on daily, and this chart is on a daily. So that means during these periods, the algorithm is saying, hey, this is a good point to buy. And when you have it selected daily, it's going to actually buy every single day. So I can filter this down to weekly. So it says only buy once a week as long as the algorithm is greenlit. And that is what occurs here. I can turn this down to monthly, and you'll see that it filters it down even further. So we're only going to buy on a monthly cadence when the algorithm is telling us to execute a trade. What this allows you to do is cut up your available capital into either small chunks or larger chunks. And that really is a preference here. In this case, I would probably increase these buy orders to $10,000 or something like that. If I drop down to a weekly, I might cut that down by 10 because I know we're getting a lot more orders in here. As you can see, we have 89 orders here on the weekly chart, and on the monthly chart, we have 19. So significant decrease in trades. That means these trades should probably be larger, most likely. So this is up to you, but this is what the repeat purchase method changes, not where the algorithm would want to take trades, but more so how many trades it takes within these sections where the algorithm is saying it wants to execute an order. Aside from the repeat purchase method, you'll notice that there are options to execute orders at different times within the day, week, or month. So you see here right now, we're on the weekly purchase method. Therefore, these weekly parameters are the only ones that are going to take effect. So I can change it to where if we're in an execution zone, let's just say somewhere around here. Right now it's at 12 o'clock on a Monday. I can change this to Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And you'll see it does change a bit over the long term. It doesn't seem to affect performance all that much. But if you really want to dial it in and you notice on certain days price gets even lower, go ahead and feel free to change this to something you like. Start date and end date are self-explanatory here. That is just the range in which we are testing. Number of bars back determines how many bars the strategy will actually load. So right now we have 10,000 bars here, given we're in 2019. So if you had this further back, you might need more bars to load in here. And then finally, for testing purposes only, we are going to have exit full position on last historical bar checked. Remember, as with the arbitrage algorithm, this is only a backtesting parameter. Do not have this checked when you go and create an instance. Otherwise, it will not function as you want, and you're not going to get the results you need. So I'll make sure to remind you again when we go set up an instance here. I'm going to leave activate intelligence alone for now. We're going to go deeper into this property here. But for now, let's go to the properties tab. Real quick, initial capital. This is the amount of money that we are starting with. And order size is the size that each execution will actually send to Gemini and purchase for you. So the difference between the arbitrage algorithm and intelligence algorithm here is order size does matter here. It is not a useful parameter for the arbitrage algorithm, but this is going to be the number you want to look for when you're determining how to size orders. And then ultimately, when you're setting up an instance, you need to double check this and make sure this is what you want and this isn't accidentally larger than what you want your buy orders to be. Now for the fun part, we get to the activate intelligence feature. So I'm going to zoom out on my chart a bit so we get a better idea of what this actually does. So let's understand the backtest scenario we're in first before we dive into playing with the intelligence feature. So we started 2019. I would say this is the beginning of a bull run here. We take these double peaks and then we crash down to 15,000 from roughly 68,000. So it takes roughly a year and a half to make a bottom before we start to rocket back up to highs. And then we consolidate for almost the entirety of 2024 before making our break into the $100,000 range. This is quite a long period. I'm sure for those of you that were here during these initial bull runs, you felt the full range of emotion, exhilaration, and then ultimately panic and depression, right? These are normal market cycles, normal feelings people have. The messaging across social media changes rapidly from, wow, Bitcoin's going to 100,000 to Bitcoin is worth nothing. So I know looking at charts, looking at history, hindsight is 2020, and this looks very easy and obvious. But when you are in the middle of all this, nothing is obvious, which is why trading is hard. And so what this algorithm does is it takes that emotion and guesswork out of this completely for you. It does things automatically, algorithmically, and intelligently, ultimately. So let's bring up that setting menu again here, and I'll move it over. We're on a repeat purchase method of weekly, and then we're at a intelligence factor of 0.7. So this is fairly moderate. It buys fairly frequently. So 89 total orders over a 6-year span. And I'm going to tick it down 2 notches to 0.5. And now we go from 89 trades to 24. And you can see from the chart, if I move this over a bit, you'll see that at 0.5, we become very conservative. We only buy the best prices during this entire 6-year range. And then if I tick it up 2 notches past 0.7 to 0.9, you'll notice we swing the other way. We go to 158 trades. Now we're buying frequently. We even buy the tops of here, and we buy this consolidation period. And so you can see how changing just this one factor determines how precise do you want to be. Are you looking to accumulate aggressively with much smaller buy orders, but more frequently, or are you looking to really only get in at those ultimate low points? And so that is a personal question. It's a question I can't answer for you, but I wanted to show you the range of options you have with the intelligence feature here. And another cool feature as well is if I bump this back to 0.7, and I go from weekly to monthly now, I almost get a similar effect as dropping the intelligence feature down to 0.5. My buy orders are fairly sparse. I'm a little less picky, and I'm actually still buying, for example, this consolidation period where when I had it to a weekly, it did not buy this area of consolidation. Once again, these are two dials that you can play with to hone in on what are your ideal settings. I personally like this setup a lot. I think this, to me, captures the best prices in Bitcoin without being extremely timid and overly cautious. So, for example, this low obviously was the best time to buy, but in real life, we accrue cash. Our income comes in every month, and it's not realistic to only deploy, let's say, $100,000 over a 6-year period. You're most likely deploying every single year. And so during a year's span, I probably want to get a buy order or two in. So what this setup allows me to do is, as time moves on, I can still funnel cash into these areas here. Once again, hands off, totally algorithmically. If you were around during this period, you know that this was a very timid place to be. A lot of people were thinking it was going to drop and we're going to go back down to 20,000 or what have you. Instead, it consolidated for the entire year and then broke the range to the upsides. Once again, hindsight is 2020 here. You didn't know this was going to occur. I go back to the value proposition of the intelligence algorithm, and that is to take your mind out of this and just let an algorithm do its job. These are very hard times to put money into Bitcoin, and definitely down here too. Once again, the sentiment at the bottom of any market cycle is always very doom and gloom. People are always saying, oh, we're at 15,000. It's going to go to 10,000. I'm going to wait to buy here. Price never reaches $10,000. And then we're back up at $50,000 and it turns into a shoulda, woulda, coulda moment. Man, I wish I bought Bitcoin. Once again, this takes you totally out of that mindset. You don't have to think this way with the intelligence algorithm. A brief note about order sizing when you are changing the frequency of buys that you're seeing here. So if you remember, if we go to settings and go to properties, our order size is $1,000. Now, we only have 19 trades, but we have 100,000 that we want to deploy over this period. And so this needs to change. $1,000 isn't enough to deploy that $100,000 over roughly 20 trades. So we need 5,000 to be able to do that. So if I just increase order size to 5,000, you'll notice this right sizes our order size. We are using up that $100,000. We're deploying it, and our net profit now reflects a 547% return over the 6-year period, which isn't half bad. So keep that in mind as you change these repeat purchase method settings and the buy low factor. It will change the number of trades that are executed, and therefore you need to back into the proper order size in order to fit your capital balance. So let's say you like these settings and you want to go ahead and create an instance and have this actually execute in your Gemini account. First, go to your settings for the intelligence algorithm. Make sure that your order size is correct and go over to inputs. And remember, we always need to uncheck full position on last historical bar before we go and create an instance. If you don't do this, your orders will not execute properly. So I'm unchecking this. Press OK. You'll notice when you do that, the strategy tester says it didn't generate any orders. That's fine because we don't actually have a sell order to close out these orders. Therefore, it doesn't know how to calculate all the P&L and statistics. So our algorithm is now ready to be ported over to an instance. To go and do that, go to your right-hand side to the clock icon. It's called Alerts in TradingView. Click that. This is how we create an instance here. Go ahead and press Create Alert or the plus button at the top. And we're going to create an alert. Make sure that the symbol is the correct pair that you want. So in this case, BTC USD. If you have USDT in your account or some other currency, it needs to match exactly what that is, or when an order goes through, it won't be able to actually execute because you don't have the right currency in there. So double check that, and also double check the time frame. So we did all this on a daily chart. Make sure this is daily. If not, you're going to have to press cancel and go up here and change the time frame. For condition, You want to select the right algorithm. So for this case, it's going to be intelligence algorithm. Expiration, set this to sometime far in the future. Once again, if you are on the essential tier, I believe they give you 2 months maximum. If you are on the premium tier, you have the option to do an open-ended alert, which never expires. So keep in mind, if you are on the essential plan, it will expire, let's say in this case on April 8th. You're going to have to make sure to reinstate this instance and set it to a future date. After that's done, you can add a name to this. So intelligence algo. And then down here where it asks for a message, delete this entire message, go to your Arch public client portal under the webhook section, and you're going to copy and paste that message into this section. Go over to your notifications, and you want to make sure you copy and paste the correct webhook URL in here, and then also change your notification settings if you would like. Go ahead and press create. And you will notice now that we have an active instance. It says active here. If you need to pause, delete, or change these settings here, you can do this all from this panel. So once again, to access it, you're going to click this clock button here. So an instance is set up. This will fire next time we get an order. In this case, as you can see, it doesn't happen very often. So for the intelligence algorithm specifically, because it's not an active trader, you're going to want to stay on top of reminding yourself that you want this thing running if you don't have open-ended alerts, because it's going to expire in 2 months. We might never get an order in 2 months. You might forget about it. That is something to keep in mind. It's probably a good reason to upgrade to the premium tier if you plan to use it in this manner. We're going to cover instance stacking, which is how we turn good algorithms into great comprehensive strategies. So I'll give you a couple ways to think about this. We just set up an intelligence algorithm with these parameters. This is pretty sparse buying behavior. We're not buying very frequently, and these are fairly large buy orders given our $100,000 initial capital. So let's say we wanted to layer on a more aggressive intelligence algorithm instance that buys much more frequently, but at much smaller clips. So if we go back over to our intelligence algorithm settings and we change our repeat purchase option to weekly, and then let's push the low buy factor up to a 0.9, for example. And so now we're getting a lot more frequent buys, and we're going to dial this back to, let's say, $500, and we're going to make sure we on exit full position just so we can see what we're looking at. So now we took 158 trades with this instance. I like this. I think at $500 clips, this makes sense given our other larger intelligence algorithm was set at 5,000. And I'm going to turn off exit full position now and get this ready to turn into an instance. So we double check our order size here. We like 500. I'm going to press OK. So now we have a different version of our intelligence algorithm in here that accomplishes a totally different goal for us, right? Instead of buying the absolute dips, we want to buy frequently. We want to be more aggressive. We want to make sure we get a lot of the pie here. And so I'm going to go ahead and create another instance. Make sure you select the intelligence algorithm again, set the expiration date to sometime in the future. And we're going to copy and paste over our webhook message and double check our webhook URL here. And we're going to press create. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give it a name first. I'll just call it Fast Intelligence Algo. And I'm going to press create. And now you'll notice there is Fast Intelligence Algo and Intelligence Algorithms. These are now two separate instances of the intelligence algorithm that act independently of each other. So they do not know when one or the other is firing off here. This is the power of our Crypto Concierge program. To show really the art of the possible, I'm going to add another layer to the sandwich, and I'm going to go and add our arbitrage algorithm here. And let's set this up quickly. So we're going to use the first recipe. And this also requires over the 6-year period about $100,000. How we can think about this is we have 3 algorithms now that require roughly $100,000 each, spread over 6 years. So keep in mind is when you stack these algorithms, you don't necessarily have full insight into the aggregate performance. You would have to manually add those up. Right now, that is a limitation of TradingView. It's not that hard to go and write down these net profit numbers, total closed trades, and determine how much capital you would need to run this over the given time period here. But let's take this down to 100,000. I just want to show this as an example of setting up another instance for a totally separate algorithm that will also run simultaneously alongside the two instances for your intelligence algorithm setup. So Arbalgo, once again, we're going to make sure we paste in the correct webhook message code. We're going to press create. Now you see I have 3 instances running simultaneously. Within 10 minutes, I created a comprehensive Bitcoin strategy that will get me in at the right time, free my mind from having to make emotional decisions about when to get in, when to get out. And ultimately, if I believe in Bitcoin, this is a great stack to have. So once again, this is the power of the Crypto Concierge program. The ability to stack instances is the real superpower here. And the beauty of this is if you have a premium membership to TradingView, you set this up in 30 minutes and you don't have to worry about this for years to come.